everyone. We are continuing our study in our history book, Laura Ingalls Wilder, page 353. So this is part 2. I'm at the top of the page and we're finishing up our modern marvels section. So the last time we were talking about what it would be like to go to school and how you'd have to get up in the morning to do your chores early and get all of that done even before the sun came up. And then you would walk several miles to go to school and and do your studies there, and then have to walk several miles back from doing school. And then you'd probably have to do some more chores in the evening. And then, of course, do any homework you had and then get ready for bed. No television, no video games, no swimming pool, none of that. But it was a good life for them. All right, page 353. Schools today are very different. All children go to school about 10 months each year. Some children learn at home. They are homeschooled by their parents. They learn the same subjects as children do in large classrooms. Other children attend a private or a public school. Now you can take the bus or ride in your parents' car to get to school. You don't have to get firewood for the stove. Electricity heats the air in the winter and cools it in the summer. Schools are much larger today and classrooms are separated by grade. Unlike Laura Ingalls Wilder, teachers now must have a college education to teach. They teach many different subjects using colorful books like this one. Beautiful pictures make reading much more interesting. Your classroom may have computers that you can use to find information in only seconds. You probably have a lunchroom where you can purchase a hot meal. You can think of many other differences too. One-room schoolhouses were very plain and simple. But many great men and women you have read about in this book went to those small schools as children. Even Abraham Lincoln learned in a one-room schoolhouse. All right, so you can think about, again, what our school looks like compared to a one-room schoolhouse. I know it kind of feels like we're in one room because we are, room 406, but we have so much more than they did in the old times. And I think we're blessed because of it. And I think they were blessed too in different ways. So let's keep reading. Changing times. Laura Ingalls married a farmer named Almanzo Wilder. They had a girl whom they named Rose. The Wilder family moved to Missouri to grow apples. The Wilders enjoyed the simple life, but America was changing in many ways. With the coming of the 1900s, people began to use cars instead of horses. Machines began to make work easier for the farmers. Even housewives had machines to help them. Okay, so now I'm on page 354. Women were used to baking their own bread, pies, and cakes for their families. Men were used to hunting or butchering farm animals to get meat for their families. With the changing times, people began to go to grocery stores for much of their food. So I love that picture on the top of page 354. That is an actual photograph of an early grocery store. The forgotten life of pioneers. Rose Wilder grew up, got married, and left home. She became a writer and traveled around the world. Laura Ingalls Wilder realized how much different life was now. Would Rose ever know what life was like when her mother was young? Would children know what it was like to be a pioneer? Laura Ingalls Wilder watched little children at play. Now little girls had beautiful dolls bought from toy shops. She smiled as she remembered Susan and Charlotte. Susan had been Laura's very first doll, made from a corn cob. But Laura had loved her as much as any little girl ever loved a doll. She remembered that special Christmas in the little house in the big woods when her mother made her a beautiful rag doll. Laura had named her new doll Charlotte. Over 50 years had passed since then. As Laura Ingalls Wilder sliced cheese she had bought at the grocery store, perhaps she thought of the time she had helped Ma make cheese at home. When Ma salted the curd, Laura was always there to help because she loved to taste it. She remembered the squeaking sound it made against her teeth. Then Laura Ingalls Wilder remembered the bears in the big woods of Wisconsin. Sometimes her pa shot bears for meat. Mrs. Wilder had been only a little girl when those things happened, but now she was over 60 years old. Pioneer memories were slipping away and being forgotten. Children would not know what pioneer life had been like unless someone wrote about it. Laura Ingalls Wilder's books. Would children enjoy reading about pioneer life? Mrs. Wilder thought so. How could she write her story? She would tell it just as it happened to her. She wrote one book about her life, but it was not printed. She rewrote the book, added some stories, and changed some names. After she wrote the book, her daughter Rose Wilder Lane edited it. Soon they had a book they knew everyone would love. They were right. There were too many adventures to put into just one book, so Mrs. Wilder wrote many books. In her first book, Little House in the Big Woods, Laura was only a little girl. This book came out during the Great Depression, but still sold many copies. Then Mrs. Wilder wrote a book about her husband's life as a boy on his parents' farm. She called this book Farmer Boy. In her next book, Little House on the Prairie, Laura's family moves, and Laura is a little older. Afterward, Mrs. Wilder wrote 5 more books about her family. So now I'm on page 356. So these are the books that she wrote up above. Little House in the Big Woods, Little House on the Prairie, Farmer Boy, On the Banks of Plum Creek, By the Shores of Silver Lake, The Long Winter, Little Town on the Prairie, and These Happy Golden Years. Changing times in American history. Laura Ingalls Wilder lived during a changing time in American history. When she was little, she traveled by prairie schooner and by horse and wagon. When she was older, she rode on a train. She remembered her excitement as a young girl when she realized that trains could go even faster than horses could run. The years passed and Mrs. Wilder rode in a car. Then came the day when she traveled in an airplane, from a prairie schooner to an airplane. Living in America was exciting. How wonderful America is, thought Mrs. Wilder. Times have changed. So many improvements have been made. Yes, America had made many changes during Laura Ingalls Wilder's 90 years of life. In her books, Mrs. Wilder captured a part of America's history so it would not be forgotten. And into it she wove the love and adventures of a real American family. So I know in our library I have every one of those books listed up there on the top of page 356. And I know a few of you have taken them and have read them. Also, I thought it was interesting, especially as I've been FaceTiming some of the girls in the classroom. They're always showing me their beautiful and cute stuffed animals and their dolls. And I'm thinking back to Laura Ingalls Wilder. She had only 2 types of dolls. One was made from a corn cob, and that was Susan. She named it Susan. It was made out of a corn cob, just a corn cob. And then her next doll was a rag doll, and that was the one where she named that one Charlotte. So I'm reminded of that every time I see all of your beautiful stuffed animals and dolls, girls, when you FaceTime me. Think about what it was like for Laura Ingalls Wilder to only have 2 dolls, and that was it. And some of you I know have a room full of dolls. So Count your blessings. All right, we're on the last page, 357, and I've asked you guys to do one of these questions and write about it because it's going to get you to think about what life was like back then versus what your life is now. So I'm going to read each question, and then you pick one that you want to write about in paragraph form. So have you ever wondered about what it would be like to live over 100 years ago? Read these questions, and again, it says discuss the answers with your class and when necessary, research to find out more information. I'm going to read them, but again, I want you to pick one. If you want to do more than one, that's great too, but at least pick one to write about. Question number 1. Riding a horse might be fun, but what if you never had anything faster than a horse to depend upon? So think about that. No cars, no bicycles, no skateboards, no trucks, no trains, no airplanes. Think about that. Think that you could go anywhere you wanted, but only on a horse. Number 2. What would it be like to ride one of the first trains? Find out how fast they went. Find out if they were comfortable. So question number 2 is going to require you to do a little bit of internet searching, but I think that's pretty cool. You'd be kind of surprised at how fast the trains went in the beginning and to find out if they were very comfortable. Remember, they're riding over railroad tracks that weren't exactly as nice and smooth as the ones we have now. All right, number 3 says, what differences would there have been in your mother's kitchen and in the way she cooks her meals? So maybe you might want to go on the internet and look at what kitchens might have looked like 100 years ago and compare them to what your kitchen looks like now. What kinds of appliances they had? Probably not too many. And of course, how many appliances we have now. And you might want to do a comparison. Number 4, this one is kind of fun. Have you ever visited the doctor or dentist lately? What would you have done if you had become ill or had a toothache? Wow. If you can imagine that, most towns maybe only had one doctor and one dentist. And if you do some internet searching, you might want to get a few pictures of what a dentist's office looked like back then or what a doctor's office looked like back then. It really wasn't much. A lot of times the doctors came to you, went out to your cabin, and if you had to go to the dentist, they didn't have a whole lot to help you with pain medication. So think about that one, and maybe that's the one you want to write on. Number 5, what kind of work does your father do now? Would he have the same kind of job 100 years ago? So you think about what kind of work your dad is doing now, and imagine what it would be like. You might have to go on the internet and search for that one too. Number 6, what kinds of toys would you have played with? What kinds of games would you have played? Would you have ever had much time to play? So remember, we talked about getting up early in the morning, doing the chores, getting ready for school, walking to school several miles, going to school, walking back home several miles, probably helping with dinner and chores, doing your homework, going to bed, not having a whole lot of the technology that we have now. So, would you have had any toys? Maybe that one's a good one to write about. And the last question, number 7, in what ways do you help around your home now? In what ways would you have helped if you had lived in Laura Ingalls' day? So, their cabins were small, so you're thinking, I don't have as much to clean, right? Maybe, but think about all the tools that you have to clean your house now. You have sponges, and you have vacuum cleaners, and you've got the Roomba, that thing that floats all over the floor, and moms love it because it cleans up everything, and you have spick and span, and you've just got a whole bunch of stuff. Back then, they might have only have had a broom, and a lot of times it would have been a dirt floor, or it might have been a wooden floor. But think about that. You might want to do some research on that. So again, I want you to write one paragraph about one of these 7 questions and really do some research on it. Really think about it. And I can't wait to see what you've chosen and what you've written. All right, guys, I'll see you next time.